How should I prepare? Should I jump off the tallest building in the world? Should I lie down on the lawn and let them run me over with lawnmowers? Or should I go to Africa and let them trample me with raging elephants? The ultimate warrior, if you can believe it.
From atop the battlements of Castle Curmudgeon, where I tried to get Black George Washington to come do the roundup this week, but when I called up Black Mount Vernon, his manservant told me he was out in the back in the hot tub with some fine-ass white women's and couldn't be disturbed. So I guess that means you're stuck with boring old me. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all ships at sea. Welcome to the Blast Radius. So good of you to join us tonight, and welcome to a very special edition of the Golden Age of Western Civilization News Roundup. Why is it a very special edition? Well, I am glad you asked. It's a special edition because Donald John Trump of Queens County, New York, had himself just about the best kind of week that most presidents only dream about having. It's the kind of week he had in mind back when he predicted, "We're going to win so much, you may get tired of winning." Are we tired of winning? We are not. And if you don't like the idea of a Trump-centric news roundup, well, that's just too damn bad, and you will have to content yourself with moaning about it in the chat, as I'm sure you will. And without any further ado, Dateline Washington, Monday, 23 June. You knew Trump's week was off to a strong start when he opened it by declaring the end of a war and then naming the war himself. He thinks we should call the recently concluded Iran-Israel conflict, to the extent that it can even be called a conflict, the 12-Day War. And that's sort of a funny thing about the Israelis, how they've got all these wars that are named after periods of days instead of periods of months or years, because that's how badly they always seem to defeat the enemy. And hey, if the Iranians want to look on the bright side, they can say, hey, we lasted twice as long as those Arab pussies did in the 6-Day War, so that means we did twice as well and only got our ass kicked half as badly. Will history actually record this episode under the name The 12-Day War? I don't think it will, and here is why. Number one, it wasn't much of a war, strictly speaking. I mean, in as much as a war involves two parties engaging in hostilities with one another, this was more a case, to use a sporting metaphor, of a boxer standing there absorbing a barrage of punishment about the head and upper torso, while occasionally responding with a weak, ineffectual counterpunch that hits absolutely nothing but air. When the sports writers write about that fight in the paper the next morning, They are not going to call it a war. They're going to call it a mismatch, a bloodbath, a mercy killing, a contest that ought not to have been scheduled in the first place. In fact, somebody at the State Athletic Commission probably ought to lose their job for allowing this bout to have been scheduled in the first place. And the referee, he should lose his license for not stopping the damn thing any sooner. And what's my favorite part of the whole exercise? That was when the Iranians called up Trump and they said, "Sir, we're going to be launching a few missiles at your military sites in Syria and Iraq. We sort of have to do this as kind of a last desperate effort to save face and not look completely impotent on the world stage, but we wanted to place this courtesy call to be sure that you know the missiles are coming so that you can blow them out of the sky, because, sir, the absolute last thing we want to do right now is cause harm to any American military personnel, because that would make you angry. And like the great Bill Bixby once said, we wouldn't like you when you're angry." Dateline Washington, Tuesday, 24 June. Now, if you have known me, your humble correspondent, longer than 5 minutes, you already know I'm not the biggest fan of NATO. But still, Trump got a win at NATO this week, and so it goes into the roundup. And what was the win? Well, he got the other members of NATO to provide an assurance, at least, that they will, in fact, start paying their NATO dues in the amount that they are supposedly required to pay them under the terms of the NATO Charter. But wait, I hear you say, didn't Trump sort that whole thing out already during Trump term 1.0? Well, yes, he did. At his very first NATO summit back in 2017, he secured the exact same assurance from many of the exact same countries that they would start living up to their treaty obligations and spending the 5% of GDP on defense and military that they are ostensibly required to spend, which they then, of course, proceeded to do, most of them at least, right up until the moment that Trump wasn't in office anymore. And then Biden apparently told them, "Okay, boys, the adults are back in charge now, so you go right back to not paying your rent." Which then, of course, they proceeded to do. That's the kind of directive from the US president that our NATO allies can really get behind. Because that's a funny thing about our NATO allies. They seem to like the NATO alliance a lot better when it's more of a US military welfare project, where they can just sort of pay whatever they feel like paying whenever they feel like paying it, but still get all the same benefits they would get if they were paying the amount they agreed to pay. And when we throw around terms like that, terms like such and such percent of GDP, we often don't take stock of how much different that number is for us than it is for anybody else who's a member of that particular alliance. What is 5% of US GDP? That's $1.38 trillion. What's 5% of GDP for all of the other 31 members of the NATO alliance put together? $1.27 trillion, which is just a roundabout way of saying the NATO alliance is a US welfare project pretty much any way you slice it, even if everybody else is paying their rent. Which would all seem a bit less ridiculous if the threat NATO was created to defend against hadn't ceased to exist in December of 1991. So yes, Mr. President, excellent job getting these grifters to agree to pay their membership dues. That is definitely a win. I just wish we could have the conversation about why the club still needs to exist at all. Do I want to live in a world where we automatically have to go to war if a non-NATO state attacks freaking Montenegro or North Macedonia? I do not. In fact, I think that's stark raving madness. Call me a heartless bastard, if you will. But on the subject of entangling alliances, I am still in George Washington's camp. White George Washington, not black George Washington, and I shall remain there. Dateline Washington, Wednesday, 25 June. In a decision that was as welcome as it was overdue, the Supreme Court of the United States ruled this week that no, individual federal judges may not unilaterally override or invalidate acts of executive power by the executive branch. And this one really hit the Democrats hard, because ever since they failed to throw Trump in prison and then realized they had left themselves without any strategy for defeating him in the election, the strategy of obstructing him with injunctions from woke activist judges has really become the linchpin and the cornerstone of their plan, such as it is, for paralyzing his administration and making sure he can't actually do anything, because they love democracy so much. Or at least some version of democracy where you can just shop around for a friendly judge and get a universally binding injunction on basically any exercise of presidential power. The problem with which should be fairly obvious, to anyone with a passing understanding of how our system of government works, since, as a practical matter, it enables a random district judge from northern Vermont to effectively assume the powers of the presidency unto himself. But there's been a lot of misunderstanding about what this decision is and what it does, and let's briefly address this. This was a ruling on a specific question that pertained to a case regarding birthright citizenship, but it was not a ruling on the merits of that case itself. So the actual issue of birthright citizenship, it remains to be adjudicated. And while it seems like a fairly simple matter to decide, I have learned to not place any faith in the Roberts Court when it comes to making obviously correct conclusions about things, because let's call things what they are. Every honest person with a functioning brain knows perfectly well the 14th Amendment was never intended to confer citizenship on the offspring of non-citizen parents. I am a big fan of Thaddeus Stevens. Thaddeus Stevens was a great man, but oh boy did he screw the pooch when he left that loophole in the language of that amendment. But then it probably never occurred to him, nor ever would it have occurred to him, that his amendment, which was intended to confer citizenship on the children of manumitted slaves, would ever be used to confer citizenship on the children of foreign invaders who ingressed our territory in open contravention of our laws. But it has been, and it's been done on an industrialized scale, and here we are 160 years later without the High Court ever having ruled on that specific question. But hopefully that happens this year, and we will keep our fingers crossed. Dateline Washington, Thursday, 26 June. In a story that surely came as a bitter disappointment to the Democrats and the fake news performance artists who have been trying desperately for half a year to cause an economic collapse so they can blame it on Trump, the Dow Jones Industrial Average reached a new record high this week, which is kind of strange because each time Trump does anything with regard to economic policy, the chorus from the fake news peanut gallery always sounds exactly the same. This is going to drive up prices for working families. It's going to crash the stock market. It's going to cause a recession. This is the end of everything. And have I told you there's a wolf on the edge of town? No, really. I just saw it right now. I remember how bad they all freaked out back on Liberation Day when Trump announced the start of the new tariff regime. Meanwhile, if you were watching actual news programs like this one, you knew the purpose of the tariffs was never for the tariffs to exist forever. That was never even remotely part of the plan. But leave it to a fake news performance artist to jump to wildly irrational, alarmist conclusions, I guess. The purpose of the tariffs, depending on the country they were being levied against, it was one of three things. Number one, if you want access to our markets without having to pay the tariff, then build factories in America and hire American workers. Number two, if we're going to have a bilateral tariff regime with somebody, then the tariffs need to be equal and reciprocal. No more of this nonsense where we charge you 10% and you charge us 90%. Number three, you want the tariffs to go away entirely? Good, then come to the table. We will work out a mutually beneficial bilateral trade deal where no tariffs need to exist at all. And in just about every case, one of the three things has wound up happening, and amazingly, the cause of global free trade has been advanced and not retarded, which must be a hell of a bitter pill to swallow for all of the no-tariff globalist free trade true believers who have been running our trade policy for upwards of the last 30 years, that Trump could make such total fools of them by achieving the same thing they say they want through means that they don't approve of. And it's not like there has ever really been any mystery here. Trump is a businessman. He is a deal maker. He understands the best deals are the ones where both parties benefit. And that's all he has been using the tariffs to try and do. It's one of the most powerful tools a president has in his bag for advancing the economic interests of the United States. And what? He's supposed to just not use it because some cranky TV economist says so? Maybe if the cranky TV economists had ever been right about anything, it would be easier to take them seriously. Dateline Washington, Friday, 27 June. Now, this is another thing I'm not necessarily a huge fan of, but it is a win for the president, so according to the rules of the game, it gets a spot in the roundup. The counterintuitively named Big Beautiful Bill inched closer to becoming a big beautiful law this week. It has passed every hurdle in the House, and now the Senate version goes back there for a floor vote, which may come as soon as tomorrow, but then it might not because Senate Minority Leader Crying Chuck Schumer plans to exercise the option, as he has the right to do, of having the entire text of the bill read out on the Senate floor prior to the next thing that happens when you get the point. So there's no telling how many hours that might wind up taking. It's funny how they never make that same request with regard to their own giant, monstrous omnibus spending bills. You know, the ones where Nancy Pelosi says we have to pass it to see what's in it. It's a pretty big departure from that, don't you think? Now, why do I say the big, beautiful bill has a counterintuitive name? Because in the opinion of this reporter, as far as legislative acts go, the adjectives big and beautiful tend to be mutually exclusive. The bigger the bill, the uglier it usually is. The bigger it is, the more crap there usually is hidden within it that the authors don't want you to know about and me to know about. And look, I know Schumer's request for a floor reading is purely an act of spite and obstructionism, but do I disagree with it in principle? I don't. I think, generally speaking, we need to get out of the habit of passing spending bills that are so impossibly big and long and unwieldy and impenetrable that they can't be read out in public in a reasonable period of time. In fact, if you proposed a constitutional amendment that said Congress will pass no law that can't be read out in its entirety in under 2 hours, I would be in favor of that amendment. What would be the worst possible downside? That Congress might have to spend more time at work and they couldn't take quite so many 4-day weekends? My God, the horror. We've seen how upset they get when they have to stay at work, say after dark, to vote on some important bill or other, which happens, twice or 3 times a year, maybe? Yeah, we really identify with your plight, guys. You know what? In fact, give me a second constitutional amendment that says members of Congress actually have to work 40 hours a week like the rest of us do, and I will support that one too. So yeah, write shorter bills, in other words. Spend more freaking time at work, and maybe you can make a positive dent in Congress's 18% approval rating. And what's the worst thing I can say about Congress? Well, when I saw that 18% number, I thought it seemed rather shockingly high. And speaking of being shockingly high, it's just about that time again when I mercifully shut my trap and pass you off to my distinguished colleague, your illustrious co-host. And don't call him Bigfoot, because that is a hominid racial slur. The one and only, your friend and mine, Mr. Caucasian Sasquatch.
Tactical nuke incoming!
I got one problem with this whole idea. If Congress was working 40 hours a week, they'd be in all my grits everywhere, and I don't think I would enjoy that too much. If the government was actually showing up and putting in the freaking effort, no, sir. I don't think anyone would like that. What do you think? Okay, good try.
40 hours, goddammit. I'm sticking by it. You're not talking me out of my idea that quick, goddammit.
I'm just saying, man. Usually when government's not working, it's working better. Let me try this.
I do see and accept and agree with your point, though, because it's kind of a counterintuitive thing that professional legislators do their best work when they legislate as little as possible. But it's the absolute truth.
Okay, we're going to do this now. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Blast Radius, where we discuss pretty much whatever's happening in the news this week, and it seems to be Trump's all aces, bro. I don't get it. Basically, I guess if you put a Chad in office, the Chad does Chad things, but I don't really like Trump myself. I think he's kind of a schmuck. But that being said, he's at least putting what he said, like America First kind of concept does seem to be kind of a thing that happens, and that's cool. I like that. I like America. I'd like it to be first. I don't like people who say that America doesn't have a culture. Have you ever tried an apple pie? A little bit of whipped topping on it. It's absolutely amazing. Baseball, Jesus Christ. We've even got wrestling. Professional wrestling. We adopted some luchadores. It's a great show. Everybody should go check it out. Especially
you might even say that professional wrestling is America's most important cultural export.
I really don't want to say that.
Well, because I mean, just it's you can't really say it about any of the sports we've invented because none of those have really exploded on a worldwide basis the same way some sports have. I mean, the Japanese love baseball and the Dominicans love baseball, and well, a lot of the Latin Americans love baseball. They don't love it as much as soccer, but pro wrestling is the one thing where you can say every place where we have exported it to, they have adopted it and made it their own and developed their own particular pro wrestling tradition, and that's something I find fascinating. I mean, I guess what other cultural exports of ours could you put on that same list? Like rock and roll and the blues and jazz, maybe, or Hollywood? Maybe. I don't know.
Pizza. There is not a culture on earth that has encountered the pizza and didn't immediately go home and make their own version of it. Right. Even Hawaiians have Spam pizza, like pizza. Every single culture develops a type of pizza or encounters pizza and makes it after that.
Of all the things to be the signature dish in Hawaii, they settled on Spam pizza. Well, if that's not a great culture, I don't know what is.
You know how the Spam thing happened to Hawaii, right?
I do. I was actually just reading about it not long ago, but I've forgotten the details. So if they're fresher in your mind, you should take it away.
All right. So essentially, it's sort of like a weird cargo cult concept where when the U.S. Navy largely pulled out of Hawaii, it was left with massive loads of Spam, just tons and tons of the stuff. And so naturally, because it wasn't worth shipping it off the island, the people at the bases on the island were given permission to sell the Spam if they could find an opportunity to make some money on the Spam, because otherwise it's just going to sit there till doomsday and, it's going to go bad. So next thing you know, there's black market Spam operations running all over Hawaii, and it becomes something of a delicacy. And ipso facto, it's like moonshine in the Southeast, You ain't just one kind.
Yeah, and Hawaii is in fact not the only place where Spam has weirdly become a delicacy. I know there's a few other examples of that happening around the world where bizarrely they managed to work Spam into one of their national signature dishes, and the people decided you entertain the people. I'm going to look that up right now.
All right, you do that thing. So, Captain Curmudgeon and I, are being the deeply masochistic people that we are, have both taken the time out of our lives and sacrificed it so that you don't have to watch all 3 episodes of Ironheart.
Woohoo, Ironheart, baby! Hi, Riri Williams, Black Girl Genius. Have I told you you're a black girl genius, Riri Williams? Hi, Riri. Sorry.
No, you're good. I know. Yes. Uh-huh.
I know I already said most of this shit in the video I made the other day, but how many times have you ever seen a black character enter a room of other black characters and say, "Hi, black people"? I myself have not.
So I sat down and I believe I texted you 6 minutes and 9 seconds into the very first episode.
Yeah, you were having a real struggle getting through that first one, as I did too myself subsequently.
In that first 6 minutes and 9 seconds, Home Check has destroyed millions of dollars of equipment through a minor error that she committed, mainly because she was exhausted from doing criminal stuff in her after hours.
And I think isn't it right around the 8 or 9 minute mark that we first meet the drag queen computer hacker friend?
Oh, that's 9 minutes, but I'm gonna get to that. Yeah. She looks like a Minecraft grass block, and I forgot to get that fucking clip. I meant to get a side by side comparison. Okay, all right. 6 minutes, 9 seconds. Millions of dollars of MIT tech. You also find out that she's a very oppressed black woman from a low income neighborhood, right? She has gotten the full boat Tony Stark ride because she's clever. Is essentially what that first 3 minutes is telling you, is that she's real smart.
She started MIT at age 15 because she is far, far smarter than any white man who ever lived. And Tony Stark only was able to accomplish what he did because he was born rich. They make a point of driving that home a few times.
Okay, so after destroying millions of dollars of school equipment that was donated through the Tony Stark Foundation, that she had nothing to do with providing anything, during this same time period, she is also selling text to 2-bit criminals, like literally in back alley deals where she's meeting up with them and giving them some piece of Stark tech and letting them run off into the world with it. And her excuse for doing this is that she's not uber wealthy like Tony Stark, and the type of tech she's wanting to work with requires you to be like uber wealthy. And so she's selling proprietary Stark tech on the black market because she's a little more clever than the other students at MIT, I guess. I don't know.
And she's doing other students' homework for them in exchange for money. And every single person that she enters into a criminal transaction with is a white male. They really make a point of showing that all of these bad people that she's engaged in criminal transactions with are male whites with penises.
With penises that are white, apparently. Okay. So we get to the 6 minute 9 second point, and you find out that she is now going to steal the tech she's been working on for the past 7 years, because when she screwed up in the lab and burned up a bunch of equipment, they decided that she was going to be removed and reviewed. And in the review, she's obviously going to get kicked out. And so her reflex reaction is to go and steal the suit that she's been working on with MIT and run away with it. And the AI
stealing stuff is always her first instinct for some reason that I can't explain.
It is, and I do not understand that. So, of course, the AI engages the OnStar system, and they track her to wherever she's going, and then the AI shuts it down, and she falls out of the sky in the middle of Harlem, like a really rough neighborhood on the edge of Harlem over here, where she loads up all her stuff. Some little black kid helps her with a little red wagon drag her multi-million-dollar Tony Stark suit home. And not
the little snarky funny 10-year-old who talks like he's a 25-year-old screenwriter.
Yeah, but not a freaking soul. She sees no drug dealers. She sees no thugs. I swear to God, it is just like Mayberry, except black and in Harlem. That is the only difference. It is a perfectly cool afternoon walk home with her multi-million-dollar stolen tech, where she goes and does a Facebook swipe download copy of her dead sister using a bunch of pictures and stuff to create an AI to run the robot for her, because she's that clever. And this AI that she creates is not just a program that looks like her sister, walks like her sister, talks like her sister, but remembers shit that only her and her sister knew about.
And you know where they stole that concept from? You know where they copy pasted it directly from? And I should have put this in my Ironheart video, but I didn't think of it. They stole that concept. You remember the Battlestar Galactica spin-off show Caprica from 2012? Yeah. They stole that concept from that show, lock, stock, and barrel.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Yeah, it's a good one though. It's a really good hook, and I don't have an issue with another show using it. It's just that there's no oppression here. She's oppressed because she's breaking the law. She is breaking the law, and there are major multi-letter agencies out there looking for her because she's doing the things she's chosen to do, right? She is working with criminals. She's breaking into places and stealing hammer tech and stealing various other technologies. And she's doing it with a group of criminals that, I don't know if you're aware of this, but down south sometimes we call those a gang, right? And so involving herself in gang activity with gang members of a distinctly diverse category that is absolutely amazing. Like,
is it bad if I want to play the pitch meeting portion of my Ironheart video?
Do it, dude. I haven't had a chance to check it out yet.
All right, I stuck it down below. Can you do it? Yeah. Just hit play. Or do I have to hit play?
You got to hit the play on that end.
All right, I will hit the play. Shit. 1 second.
Maybe.
Shows the reaction turns more from, wow, this show really sucks, to, wow, I can't believe this show actually got made. Like, was there a pitch meeting for Ironheart? And if so, what do you suppose that pitch meeting sounded like? Okay. Our main character is named Riri Williams. She is a strong, powerful black woman who don't need no man for nothing. She's a 20-year-old math and computer science genius who is better than everybody at everything, but she is also really cool and hip and streetwise. She even uses words like finna, which is F-I-N-N-A, which is short for fixing to in case you only speak cracker. Anyway, Riri's biggest problem is that the world doesn't appreciate how awesome she is, and because of this lack of recognition, she has to support herself through a combination of academic fraud, petty theft, and grand larceny, but it's okay because the people she steals from are white men, and so are the people that she sells homework to, because we want to really drive home the point that she is much, much smarter than any white male individual. So we are going to be really over the top about the fact that all the people whose homework she does are male, white male men with penises. The producer probably interrupts around this point, and he says, all right, we got a girl, very smart, very black, leads a life of crime. You got to get any more than that. What actually happens in the movie? Well, I'm glad you asked, sir. You see, Riri needs to commit these crimes so that she can have money to build an Iron Man suit. But didn't Iron Man already build a whole shitload of Iron Man suits? Well, yes, sir, technically he did, but Iron Man is dead now. But the suits didn't fucking die, too. The fucking suits still exist. Sir, I'm gonna need you to get all the way off my back about the fucking suits. All right, let me get off of that thing. So what happens next? Well, it's very important that Riri build her own Iron Man suit, because if she builds her own Iron Man suit, it will make the world a better place. How is it going to make the world a better place? Well, we're not really going to go into any specifics about that. Basically, we just need an excuse why Riri, it's okay for her to be a criminal psychopath. I thought she was allowed to be a criminal psychopath because she's a strong, powerful black woman. Well, yes, sir, that is also true, but I feel like we should really go overboard with the moral get-out-of-jail-free cards here, because if we don't, we're going to be left with a pretty shockingly unlikable title character. That's true, she does seem pretty unlikable. Won't it be difficult getting the audience to root for a person with so many reprehensible character attributes? Oh, no, sir, it'll be super easy. Barely an inconvenience. Oh, really? Yeah. How so? Well, we're going to have the other characters in the show constantly remind her that she's black and she's a girl and she's a genius. So it totally doesn't matter that she's a career criminal without any redeeming personal qualities whatsoever. Now, you know what else we should do? What's that, sir? We should have the other characters say her name out loud a whole bunch of times. Like when her best friend walks up, he could say, "Hi, Riri Williams, black girl genius." Saying your friend's names out loud a whole bunch of times is tight. Yes, it is. And with all due respect and copious apologies to the great Ryan George, I'm done. That's all I've got.
That's it. That was pretty good, dude. I liked it. But no, you've got a point. I mean, there is almost as much casual exposition in this series as there is in Ahsoka. We're just random people walking into rooms tells you what's going to happen to the next scene so that you can keep up with what's going on. Or my personal favorite, where they explain what happened in the previous scene, just in case you weren't paying attention.
Well, and do you want to hear something completely mental? The person they gave the job of being the head writer and apparently the director and the showrunner for this piece of shit, do you want to hear the extent of her previous credits before she was handed this multi-$100 million Marvel project? Because they won't take very long to read out. She's got 4 TV writing credits. No, 3 in 2020. She co-wrote 1 episode of a show called Amazing Stories, which I've never heard of. I mean, I heard of the 80s show Amazing Stories. Apparently there was a revival that I never knew about. And she co-wrote 1 episode of a show called Snowpiercer. She co-wrote 1 episode of a show called The Midnight Club, and that is literally it. They took that track record and said, "Here's a check for $200 million. Go make our Black Girl Iron Man show." What are these people actually thinking?
So I've watched Snowpiercer. It wasn't great. Yeah, it wasn't great. The first season's pretty good up until they start having to actually explain themselves, and then everything goes off the rails. They start like, well, it suffers from the same problem Supernatural suffered with. You know, Supernatural, they came in, they had like half a season written, and they were like, oh, that first episode's bomb. And they were like, oh, crap, I'm going to need how many more episodes? Like 16. 16? Crap. Okay. So they wrote 16 episodes by basically stealing from all of the old Hollywood greats. And when they got to the end of that season, they were renewed, and they were like, okay. So they did all of the, basically the Amazing Stories, sci-fi things, right? It's just, and then they just rinse, repeat, and just change them out for different tropes. What I actually like about Ironheart, and this is in no way a good thing, but I do enjoy it, is the raw nostalgia for Lockdown it gave me. That whole
you raise an excellent point. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
It's like a last gasp effort of member berries to try to, come on, we can be strong and empowered and socialist again. Just let us have our mostly peaceful protest and our summer of love and the whole 9 yards. That whole thing.
We're all in this together. Just shut up and obey.
You know what it feels like? Did you watch any of Falcon and the Winter Soldier?
Oh yeah.
Okay. It has that exact same feel to it. This whole series is just talking down to everyone constantly. And it's so thick with the trope that it's really hard to take it serious at its face value. And I wonder if it's meant to be like a super satire. Like,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'm glad you brought up Falcon and the Winter Soldier, because I think that was the first project where we really had an indication that this stuff was going down a road that was going to be very woke and very political and not necessarily very good. We didn't really get much of that because Falcon and the Winter Soldier was the second of the Disney Plus shows that came out. The first one was WandaVision, and I liked WandaVision. I thought it was an interesting premise. I thought there were some interesting episodes in it. The thing where it fell apart was it just turned into a Marvel, smash bang explosion fest in the final episode. But there was nothing in that show that led us to believe that we were going down the road they have subsequently gone down. Falcon and the Winter Soldier was when we first saw it. When Black Captain Falcon America says, "You got to do better, Senator." Because, that's just supposed to mean something. You get back there and you do better. God damn it.
Just do better. Right.
Just do better.
Big advocate for being the change you want to see in the world, So I tend to treat people a little better than they treat me, just on the general premise that you've got to do the thing that you want done or no one will do it. Right. Anyway.
I still haven't got around to watching the Captain Falcon movie. I think it's on Disney Plus though now, isn't it?
I think so.
Yeah.
My one concern about this whole series, I saw her make a mistake. She made an error. She's not a Mary Sue. She was all right. So she's in a facility she's never been in. Only found out about 45 minutes ago, and only had the time period to fly from where she was at to where she is now in about 30 seconds in the movie, maybe 20 minutes in reality, to this facility offshore where they break in, and while they're in there, they set off some bullshit. She sets off some bullshit. She tries to basically steal a piece of cloth from a magical cloak that her boss is wearing. By the way, this is her criminal enterprise's boss. He's in there trying to run distractions so that all the gizmos and gears don't set off. But she breaks protocol to go and sneak up on him and use her snuck-in super laser bracelet that she invented to cut off a piece of his cloak so that she can test it and reproduce the magical qualities of it for her suit. Right? This is totally.
I heard there was some magic shit in the later episodes, but I didn't make it that far.
He basically makes little magical portholes, and when somebody points a gun at him, he opens it pointed back at the person.
Like Doctor Strange kind of portholes.
Almost identical. Yes, totally, absolutely. But he doesn't do all those. It's just a byproduct of the cloak. He can be much cooler without doing all the hand gestures, right? He just gets to stand there all swarthy and sullen, like a garage band lead singer waiting to put his show on.
So I don't want to break up your train of I don't want to break up your train of thought here, but the Google AI machine has informed me about all the countries where spam has been incorporated into the national cuisine. If you want me to read out the list.
We'll get to that in just a second. The error this woman made was after discovering a crawl space that wasn't in any of the diagrams that she looked at, as far as I could tell. She pops off the panel, climbs in, it goes up and around, and then she pops off another panel and goes to hop out, and she misjudges the distance from a few inches, and so she twists her ankle, and this forces her to fall behind so that the next scene can take place without her being present.
Tony Stark never twisted his fucking ankle.
Right? He built it in a fucking cave with a bunch of spare
Box
parts.
of scraps. I know, which is the natural counterpoint to when she says, "Well, Tony Stark was only able to do all that stuff he did because he was a billionaire." Sweetheart, he built the first Iron Man suit in a cave with a box of scraps. What part of that did you miss? Like, did you not see the first movie? What the hell, sweetheart?
I know, dude. Like, I got to this one point, and all my kids showed up, and I just paused it and thought about it for a second, turned the TV off because they're less likely to screw it up that way. So I turned it off, got up, answered the door, and I did the whole thing. This is like midway through it, and I came back right there at that point where they're having that conversation about how the only reason Tony was able to do all the stuff he did, when she belittled his. I can't remember what she said about him. But she says something kind of slighting his intelligence, and then is like, he's also the wealthiest man on earth, or some shit like that.
And that is not even the only level on which her pathological lack of self-awareness exists. Because am I the only one who missed that she started MIT when she was 15 and she's been there on a free ride ever since with basically unlimited resources to do whatever her genius brain wants to do, but she's still going to portray herself as a victim of an unjust society, as some sort of disadvantaged person? My dear, you have had advantages that 99% of the people in the world could never envisage. What are you talking about?
Absolutely. It is a travesty of 2020 thought processes. I'm dead serious. I feel like this script was written in 2020 and got put on the shelf.
You know this thing's been sitting in the can finished for 3 years, right?
That would make some sense.
This is an artifact of 2021, of the kind of products that they thought they were going to be making from there forward, and they're only releasing it right now. Why they decided to release it, I have no idea. I would not have released it myself.
I don't know. Once you've got it in the can, you might as well. I mean, the worst that happens is you lose money on the production, which you know is going to happen. But like I said, there's a certain flavor.
Go ahead.
There's a certain flavor to it that comes straight out of that post-lockdown fervor, right? 2020, 2021, right in that ballpark. And it was obviously written as like, I mean, it's like you watch it and it's almost like being there again.
And I hadn't thought about it in those terms, but it's an excellent point to bring up, because just since you mentioned it, I can totally see that it's an artifact of a very particular place and time, which is post-lockdown, and also right at the start of the woke Hollywood period, or the woke Disney Marvel period, whatever you want to call it, where they thought they were gonna be going down this road. And if it's been done since early 22, then it seems like it was done probably. It seems like they had already made it when they released the second Black Panther picture, which is when we first met this character. Seems like
Yeah.
it would make the most sense to release it immediately in the aftermath of that, but they must have not had a good feeling about this thing, because the only explanation I have for why you don't release it when it makes sense to release it and then wait around for 3 years not releasing it is because maybe they were waiting to have a successful, well-received product to come out, and then they could dump it immediately in the aftermath of that, and hopefully not many people would notice it. But they haven't had that option because everything they put out keeps bombing and bombing and bombing and bombing.
Andor's doing really well, bro. Andor is actually, the subtleties in the plot of Andor has really...
You're mixing universes here. We're talking Marvel, not Star Wars.
But no, the fiscal aspect of this is a mixed universe in this case, because having at least a booming product to drop this after, which would be Skeleton Crew almost did it, not quite, but second season of Andor was excellent. It almost completely.
But is it actually pulling ratings, or was it just critically well received?
It got the ratings, dude. Like, people actually watched it, both seasons. They went back and watched the first season because the second season was so well received. If you have not watched Andor, I stopped watching the first season when I saw a bunch of supposed rebel fighters marching down the road and all of their blasters were pointed at each other's heads, and I just turned it off, got up, walked out of the room.
I watched the first season of it, but I didn't like it as much as some other people did. And we've talked about this before, that there's a limit to how much I can get myself invested in a show about a character that I already saw die 10 years ago in the first movie he was in.
Well, I think this was done and well received largely because it does quite firmly fill the gap between the old movies and the new movies in a way that it would be very difficult to use a movie to do so. I mean, you saw the attempt with Rogue One. Well, if you watch Rogue One and carry Rogue One straight through to the Blue Harvest, you end up with a very contiguous story about a captain who sacrificed everything specifically for the rebellion, but not really, because, you know, there's other reasons that he's actually doing it.
So we are what, 13 years now into the Disney Star Wars era, and is Rogue One still the best thing to come out of that period?
Rogue One and its ancillaries, yes. In fact, the period between Revenge of the Sith and Blue Harvest, which you would know as Star Wars, A New Hope.
No, just Star Wars.
Is still
That's what it was called when I went to see it the first time, God damn it, and that's what I will always call it.
I mean, I could still go toe to toe with anybody about the differences in Empire Strikes Back. When you're dealing with Cloud City and when they edited everything to go from being a claustrophobic tin can to being a massive city in the clouds, they ruined one of the major plot issues in there, and that's the fact that why would a C-3PO and stumble across some stormtroopers unless they were literally hiding in broom closets and shit to keep from being seen, right? It was so claustrophobic in the first version of it that it was obvious that somebody was going to trip over a stormtrooper somewhere eventually. But when you
it makes me feel bad for Irvin Kershner when he has to watch his picture get that done to it, and he had nothing to do with it, and he has to watch that and say, I didn't put this in my picture. There was a reason I didn't put this in my picture. What the hell are you doing to my picture, George? Well, at least I would have been like that if I was him.
I can get the desire to utilize the new technology in a dramatic way to improve a product that's going to basically just double your money on the franchise you've already invested in. And you're doing it for pennies, basically learning to do the green screen work that you're wanting to do in the future. And this finances that directly into a profit line. So I have no problem, none of it. The issue is you didn't think through that one scene, did you? If it's an entire city, the chances of them stumbling across the stormtrooper is virtually nil. But if it's
I think we have to bear in mind also that from Lucas's perspective, when he was doing the special editions, he was not thinking that there was ever going to be a sequel trilogy, because he wasn't imagining, he had no desire to make any sequel movies, and he wasn't planning on selling the franchise, as he of course did wind up doing. But when he did the special edition, I don't think he would have done that if he had planned on a sequel trilogy existing, because he does the special edition not just for the DVD release, but they did a theatrical release as well. So that was sort of a last attempt to squeeze the last cinematic dollars out of those 3 pictures that you could get. And he does them after the prequels already exist. You're probably not going to be able to do it, dress those up and re-release them again, although they did try with the 3D thing. They were going to do 3D conversions on the whole prequel trilogy, or the whole 6 movies, and then they only released The Phantom Menace, as I recall, and then the Disney deal happened and the whole rest of all that stuff got canceled. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, that's about right. There was also supposed to be a Thrawn-centric series that was going to be done that was supposed to take place in the same time period as Rogue One, right? And as I understand it, in the initial pitch meetings, the whole Rogue One movie scene was supposed to take place in the unexplored regions, and basically was going to be the springboard of the rebellion. At this point, they're all still just the resistance, right? There's just a few people here and there that are kind of pissy about the whole situation, but there hasn't really been a reason to pop off a rebellion yet, right? And then the events in Andor take place, which is sort of canon on all 3, like extended universe legends and the Disney universe, but the specific trigger is different in each one. But it was always the complete destruction of a planetary biosystem specifically to acquire materials for the Death Star. And that's what it is in Andor, and that's what the information that is taken to Mon Mothma at the beginning of A New Hope is the information that comes from that planet being destroyed, and the materials that they took, and the type of shit they could build with it, and what that might mean for a super battle station, which no one believes exists. I mean, like full-on tinfoil hat territory. And it's done great. I think
don't build it with a really vulnerable exhaust port, is all I have to say.
I think nobody saw that coming.
Nobody saw that coming.
And only a Jedi could do it. So, like,
you want to hear something funny? the other afternoon, I randomly turned on Top Gun Maverick. I don't know why. It just came up in the suggestions, so I clicked on it. And then after a while, Lady Curmudgeon comes in, starts watching it, and they're practicing for the final mission. And she goes, "They're doing a Star Wars." I hadn't said anything, but she figured it out on her own. I said, "Yes, honey, they are in fact doing a StarArs. It is a trench run to a tiny exhaust port they have to hit, and then they have to get out of Dodge before the whole thing blows." And the only thing missing is freaking Han Solo showing up in the Millennium Falcon. But Glenn Powell's character does show up in his F-18, so I guess that's close.
Yeah. It's also a reference to a game series called Ace Combat, where the complete layout of that entire facility is laid out like I think it's called the Megalith in one of the final battles on the game. And it's that mission. That's the mission. You got to fly into a volcano and drop a bomb in a freaking soccer hoop. Like you got to drop a guided bomb that's not supposed to need to be guided into a space the size of a watermelon or something, and it is almost impossible.
And you've got to turn off your targeting computer and make the shot with your feelings. That's the most important part.
Through the power of friendship, which is the fucking greatest thing. And I want to point out one character in that movie, in Maverick, the blonde guy who's so good at everything. He's the absolute best. And you really want to hate him because he's always bragging about how good he is. He's
Glenn Powell. I forget his call sign.
Right. Hangman? No.
Hangman, that's it. Yep.
Is that it? Okay, so Hangman is the best of the best. He knows he's the best of the best. He suspects everyone else in this room got in on some kind of diversity hire bullshit. You could tell.
Oh yeah, he is this movie's Iceman.
But that's the thing, is Iceman was that good and talked about it, but at the same time, he had a slight bit of humility built into him that was evident on its surface. He was a cold-hearted motherfucker, but he had his heart in the right place, frozen though it was. Hangman is that fucking good, dude. He's that good. He's telling you he's got that good. And he's got 12 of the best motherfuckers on earth at the shit that he's that good at, telling you he's also that good. They agree, all of them. The teachers, everybody there is like, yeah, we know you're that good though. But the very
and he still only got picked for the backup spot because as good as he is, he's just too darn cocky.
No, he sees Tom Cruise pull off a maneuver that he didn't even think the air platform could do. Like, it should have broken something, but Tom Cruise is like, look, you've got to verify your airplane. It's not just a vehicle. You check everything. That checklist is not just for dummies, bro. Like, you're supposed to check it out, you know. And Tom Cruise knew the airframe could do it because he'd done it before. And so he pulls a maneuver that homie looks at him and goes, that shit's impossible. And he's like, well, it's not impossible. It's really uncomfortable. Okay. And he takes second seat with no complaints. He has no issues with it. He has witnessed this man do a superior maneuver and now knows that he is second best. And he's cool with that. And you want to hate him for being so good, but he's right. And he steps down the very second he finds someone who's better. You can't hate him.
You know what I like about that picture that I was thinking about as I was watching it was that picture is always going to hold up because they did all the aerial stuff in real life. There's never going to be a time where you go back and watch that movie and think, oh, this looks like shitty 2017 or 2020 CGI or 2021 CGI or whatever year it is. There's never going to be any problem with that. It's always going to look just as good. It's never going to appear dated, and there is something to be said for actually doing the real thing when you're photographing a movie. And I think that applies also to the performances of the actors playing the pilots. Having them actually be in the cockpit makes a big hell of a difference too, compared to what we used to get in airplane movies where it was just a guy sitting in a mock-up of a cockpit with a couple of guys rocking it back and forth. This is a lot better than that.
A lot better. And you can see the effort it takes to do that type of stuff. And
yeah. Not even to operate the aircraft, but just to be in the aircraft while it's doing high performance maneuvers.
Right. There's nothing will ever replace practical effects when it comes down to it.
Never ever. No amount of claymation, stop motion, green screen, chicanery, none of that. It just won't can't be done.
Okay, so we've had a request. We've got to do the request now. We're at that
Let's do
point.
the request.
All right, so what do you think of when I say the word alligator Alcatraz?
I think of Bridge on the River Kwai, but I already told you that.
Well, elucidate. Explain. Why was
the idea behind the alligator Alcatraz? As soon as I heard the concept, which is there basically aren't going to be any perimeter defenses on this thing because you don't want to escape because what's out there is worse than what's in here. And it reminded me of the opening scene of Bridge on the River Kwai, where Colonel Saito explains to Sir Alec Guinness and all of his men that we don't have guard towers around here, we don't have any barbed wire, we don't have any fences. In fact, do feel free to try and escape because what's out there is going to do way scarier shit to you than anything that me and my guards can do in here. So just so we're clear on that, then let's proceed. But
okay.
They do try to escape anyway. One of them dies, two of them succeed, but I think everybody knows how the movie ends.
Yeah, I kind of want to start whistling right now. But here's the thing. Every
time I watch that movie, I hope William Holden lives, and he still dies every time.
Every single fucking time.
Every single goddamn time.
But there's thousands of Florida men out there that snuggle up to these swamp puppies on a regular. It's not that drastic, yo. Like, it's hilarious that people are going this way. But since I love Asmongold's eyebrows the mostest and the bestest, we're going to utilize his dive into it. It is 12 minutes long, and we're going to do this in about 3-minute lists, fair use and all that stuff. We're going to comment on what he comments on. We're going to comment on what we comment on. We're going to comment over some shit because we're assholes. It'll be great.
Is the government calling it Alligator Alcatraz, or is this like just a media thing?
All right, meantime, a new migrant detention center is getting a lot of attention.
It's a migrant detention center.
And it's in Florida. The attention is thanks to its very unique security system.
This 30 square mile area is completely surrounded by the Everglades. Presents a efficient, low cost opportunity to build a temporary detention facility because you don't need to invest that much in the perimeter. People get out.
It's like Escape from Miami. Kurt Russell's going to be out there in 45 minutes.
Well, and you want me to briefly run through some facts from the Alligator Alcatraz Wikipedia page, which only started existing today, and I imagine some Wikipedia editors are going to be trying to pull it down. But should I read from it briefly?
Go for it.
Alligator Alcatraz is the informal name for a large, rapid-build immigration detention facility being erected on the runway of the Dade Collier Training and Transition Airport inside Florida's Big Cypress National Preserve. Announced in June 2025 by Florida Attorney General James Uthmeier and championed by Governor Ron DeSantis, the compound is designed to relieve pressure on federal immigration jails by housing up to 5,000 detainees in a remote area surrounded by alligator and python-filled wetlands. The nickname alludes to both the local reptile population and the former maximum security Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary. We play a little bit more now.
All right. So I think you're giving them gators a little bit too much credit. Them things is good eating.
It's true. There are... Sorry.
Alligators and pythons.
Go ahead, bro.
I was just going to say there are areas of the country where an alligator isn't really that much more noteworthy than a squirrel or a possum, and I think maybe let's not lose sight of that.
Right?
Most alligators are not big enough to eat or even seriously harm a man. I mean, I know that goes against the sexiness of the story, but I'm just saying.
I mean, just don't let your puppies too close to the water's edge. Maybe keep your kids back too.
Yeah,
Hashtag
it's still not a place you want to try to escape from. Not necessarily because of the alligators, but just because it's a difficult place for a person to survive without any survival gear.
No, it's the Bill Gates mosquitoes, and you fucking know it.
Nowhere to hide.
It's called Alligator Alcatraz.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I love it. That's the most Florida shit. Yeah. This is brilliant. I love it. Make moats great again? Yeah. Oh my. And so they're going to put all the migrants in. Okay. For
It's
migrants,
expected
yeah.
to be operational by next month. So joining me now is the
next month.
man who came up with this idea. It's Florida Attorney General James Uthmeier. Mr. Attorney General, thanks for being with us here today. I think before I get into the specifics and details, which I have a lot of curiosities about Alligator Alcatraz, how did this happen? Where did the inspiration come from to convert this spot in the Everglades?
Sure. Well, under Governor DeSantis'
right?
leadership, Florida's become pretty good at responding to states of emergency, and that's really what the illegal immigration crisis is.
Yeah.
Just last week, we pulled MS-13 members off the streets in Orlando. The week before, it was criminal alien human traffickers and sex predators.
That's good.
We stand by President Trump, and we're going to do everything we can to support that administration in their efforts.
So are they going to put in like bonus alligators? Like that's what I'm kind of curious.
I like where this man's going. I like what he's thinking. Maybe
I have never in my life heard the term bonus alligators.
Alligators. Bonus alligators. I got to remember that. Bro, in Florida, they got this little thing called a pygmy rattler, and it's one of the more deadly rattlesnake types, and they're like this big. They're tiny.
Yeah, I mean, I know. I understand and appreciate the desire for it to have an alliterative nickname, and Alligator Alcatraz. It really flows off the tongue, and it's impressive. And kudos to anybody whoever it was that thought of it. But if just in a purely utilitarian sense, I don't think alligators are at or near the top of the list of creatures that are most likely to inflict serious harm on you if you try to escape from this place. I think probably a lot of insects and arachnids are closer to the top of that list than an alligator is, but it doesn't make for a sufficiently sexy name, so I understand why they went this route.
Sure. But whoever it was that came up with alligator Alcatraz either needs to be brought up on charges or given a medal, and I'm unsure which.
I'm gonna say medal, letter of commendation at least.
At least. I mean, something needs to be done and said about it because it's absolutely amazing. And like I said, the Onion's writing for reality nowadays.
Damn right.
Is it like one of the things that's just going to work itself out?
Thank God they're protecting American families. But our success in arrests is filling up the jails quickly. So we need additional detention space. And this location is ideal because of its surrounding area. It's a low cost, already developed 30 square mile area surrounded by the Everglades. So Alligator Alcatraz has a nice ring to it, and we're going to get it up and running as soon as possible.
I cannot believe this is real. Well, it's Florida, so I can. But at the same time, this is amazing. We have such a great excess of alligators. You're right. Yeah. We got to do something with them, right?
Should we put lasers on the alligators or just give them meth?
Yes, but could we very briefly talk about politics here? Now,
if we have to.
I know the Democrats used to be good at politics. They're not very good at it really so much anymore, but the correct way for them to respond to this thing would have been to say absolutely nothing whatsoever. There is no way they can complain about this that's not going to wind up making them look like dicks. You know why? Because all of the complaints are along environmental grounds. Oh, you can't house 5,000 illegal aliens there because it'll cause environmental damage. But you know how we know that's not true? Because it used to be a fucking airport. And for decades and decades and decades, I guarantee you there was more than 5,000 people there every day, and it didn't destroy the fucking Everglades. Imagine that.
Go figure, right?
Number of migrant detentions, I believe at the start of this administration was something like 39,000. It's currently up to 56,000. There's a stated goal to arrest roughly 3,000 illegal immigrants a day. So you're responding to a need, to a demand for more detention centers. Let's talk about alligator.
I have an idea, and just stick with me on this one. All right. So correct me if I'm wrong. The current claim, or at least one of the claims, is that the illegal migrants are a large portion of the workforce that is helping building and maintaining the infrastructure of America, right? Mm-hmm. So what if
I'm letting you cook?
We've already got all the migrants, right? We let them work for us for like 2 or 3 years to get their green cards. You know, the ones that come in just on freaking immigration dodging, right? None of the hardcore criminals, none of those guys. Screw those guys. Nobody who commits any major crime, screw those guys. But the guys who are just here trying to make a life for themselves, we give them a chance. But we let them build the ICE facilities we need to deport the people that are here by using the illegal immigrants to build the infrastructure in the first place, bro. Come on, it'll be the best.
Well, and it sounds like these guys are going to have a pretty sweet setup in this place. They're going to have like big heavy duty climate controlled tents. They're not even going to make them sleep out in the Everglade conditions, which kind of defeats the whole purpose for me. I feel like we need a Sheriff Joe Arpaio running this thing who will make them dress in ladies' underwear and shit. I would like that a lot more.
Papillon, bro. There's going to be letters and books told about this place. There's 17 months in Alligator Alcatraz, and I've tried to dig up, but I keep drowning.
To the point you were just making a second ago, and which goes back to my point about how Democrats used to be good at politics and are not good at politics anymore. The most self-defeating argument they could possibly make with regard to illegal immigration, and it seems to be moving up the list of their favorite ones, is the one that says, well, we can't deport illegal aliens because then you might pay a little bit more for a head of romaine lettuce or fresh strawberries or avocados, because you're taking these human beings whose welfare you claim to care so very deeply about, and you are reducing their worth to their effect on the price of produce. And that doesn't seem like a very morally upstanding position to this reporter.
I've never understood the two-tier concept brought about by that particular type of policy regime. You can directly see its effect in California and its entire agricultural market system. It looks kind of good with all like the corner markets and all of the local produce and stuff like that, but all of that stuff built on the back of illegal immigrants, all of it. And so it creates a two-tier system of economics, a two-tier system of justice, where, I mean, it's just too much to freaking go into, really. It's just disturbing.
We had the whole thing figured out during the Eisenhower administration, too. But so much for that.
Right?
Alcatraz. How much Everglades surrounds this would-be prison? Like, you're talking about minimal security and natural barriers and elements. Help me understand. Like, how far to civilization?
Yeah, it's miles and miles once you get down there.
I think it's. I think we should have a system where, like, if you're an illegal alien and you get out and you get all the way through the Everglades. I do.
What just
I
happened?
think at that point you've earned it.
Oh, I see what happened. Right. I was typing in chat, but I wasn't. Instead, video.
Back over to Tampa or Orlando, Florida. I think we should just give them citizenship. I do. I think at that point you've earned it. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. You immediately get citizenship.
You can have it like a Mr. Beast game, have it like a
This
Squid
is right
game.
smack
Yeah.
dab in the middle.
Totally
It was
fair.
built
Is there a
back
finish
in the
line?
60s
Yeah.
and 70s with the idea
Make
to be
a
a
show
large
out of it.
airport.
Exactly.
There's an
Have you a button that you push? You got to get into town, past all the officers and everything. Hit the button in the town square. Poof, you get a green card. Do it like
Yeah.
American Theater.
They make a game show out of it.
Damn right.
1,000-foot runway. Would
You either get a green card or you die.
out. Hundreds and hundreds
Sponsored by
of people
Mr.
as we
Beast.
are working to detain and deport them out of this country. But
The
there'll be some
citizenship
light
games.
infrastructure. We'll have a perimeter, but at the end of the day, Mother Nature presents the ultimate perimeter,
Yeah.
and it's why this is the great spot for a detention facility.
Okay,
I feel like
miles and miles.
I feel
of-
like they need to have like one more thing. Like you've got the pythons, you've got obviously like all the other, venomous snakes. You've got the alligators. They need to have like, if they could like
Archers.
genetically or like a miniature velociraptors or something.
Yes.
Panthers. I really like the sound of panthers. Florida panthers.
Archers with flaming arrows.
That's a big one. Snapping turtles.
No, you just have an open season weekend down
I
there.
don't know if they could do hippos. Hippos would be
I can't finish that
those would
sentence
be
on
like,
YouTube.
Like in Elden Ring,
Hippos
Night
are some
Rain,
vicious
where, like,
motherfuckers.
They're really, really hard, like field
Really,
bosses.
really are. And they're in
That'd
South
be like
America.
the hippos.
Yeah, I mean they can make a strong claim to most vicious animal on earth that will kill you the quickest.
natural barriers.
Fact.
What does that mean for security
The
should you
magma
build
worm.
it? Do you need less in the form of guards? Do you need a less secure, less robust perimeter?
They have guards. They just don't pay them. They're called
You
alligators.
obviously need a less robust perimeter
Yeah.
given the natural surroundings. There will certainly be additional.
Okay, so a large portion of this is going to be propaganda laid down specifically to make the people inside the facility be afraid, right? But I wouldn't be surprised if some asshole out there with some freaking pet panthers that can't take care of takes them out to this location and lets them go.
But
You know.
when you first take them to the place they're going to be housed, don't you sensorially deprive them so they don't have any idea where they are in case they do try to make an escape?
Not in this case.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, would they? Because you don't normally when when detainees get to a new location, you don't tell them exactly where they are geographically, but maybe this is the exception. You say, we're smack dab in the middle of the Everglades, boys, so feel free to try to escape. We got video cameras everywhere. We're going to make you go viral if you try and get out of this son of a bitch, because you're going to get eaten by a bunch of creatures, and we're going to have the video.
Right? Drones.
We're have staffed guards. The governor's called in the National Guard, the Florida National Guard, to help, along with other staff will support. We're also looking at other locations, at least.
Make Stupid People Famous has updated his name. He is now Here I Am.
A couple other throughout the state.
Good idea.
We want to get 5,000 beds up and running by next month so that we can properly support the Department of Homeland Security in their mission. And I got to tell you, Secretary Noem had a great idea looking at the tens or hundreds of millions that the Biden administration was spending to put immigrants up in fancy hotels. That funding is being redirected towards these facilities, towards the deportations.
So
and
it's
we're
a
going to
hotel,
get the job
but it's
done.
a different kind of hotel.
Reminds me of something out of a movie. It might be a specific
Yeah.
movie. I can't remember, but you fellows are welcome to escape if you'd like. If you can get past the guards, if you can get past the perimeter, you have to then get past everything that lies in your way.
I think that they have to record it. They can record it and then run all the advertising
Uh-huh.
on the show.
I already
and
said
then
that,
make
too.
the
Pay-per-view.
advertising to pay for the prison.
Yeah,
And
I
then if
know.
somebody actually escapes, they get to get their citizenship.
In this case, Alligator Alcatraz.
This is
All
a
right,
really
Mr. Attorney
good
General,
idea.
thank you for being with us.
I
I
like
really like this idea.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, Sean.
Oh my God, this can't be real. It is. This is actually like this is. It responds to growing. Wait, bat? Oh, what is this? Hose mad again?
Growing backlash over a migrant detention facility
What?
being
Some
built
fat Karen is complaining? Who cares?
deep in the Everglades that's being called Alligator Alcatraz. Tonight, we're digging deep into the plans in place for this controversial
I just like
location
hearing it.
as Governor DeSantis weighs in on the project. Local Sun's Glenn Milberg is live from Okeechobee with the very
Put them
latest.
there?
Glenna?
Yeah.
Nicole, as
This is a
controversial
great
as this
idea.
whole thing has become, the logistics here are very very familiar.
we
Remember
got a handsy
when
one here.
after the hurricane, people
Who says it's
Yeah, she's
Where
got
are
to talk
they?
with her hands, or else she
have
won't
big
understand.
tent cities,
I don't
kind
see
of
it.
like that. The COVID hospitals, the field hospitals during the pandemic, kind of like that. And at the pace that we have seen trucks and materials go in and out of here all day, even now after hours, this is happening very, very quickly.
Midpoint, Tamiami Trail at the edge of Big Cypress National Preserve. Florida's familiar logistics of temporary mass housing well underway.
So
Though now-
they're like building them a rust base out there.
Yeah, basically. I thought of it, but he's right. Looks just like a rust base. A whole bunch of
All
Connex
right,
trailers.
I've got some facts on Big Cypress National Preserve if anybody wants to know the size of the thing.
Let's do the thing. Do it.
Big Cypress National Preserve is a United States national preserve located in South Florida, about 45 miles west of Miami on the Atlantic coastal plain. The 720,000-acre Big Cypress, along with Big Thicket National Preserve in Texas, became the first national preserves in the United States park system when they were established on 11 October 1974. In 2008, Florida film producer with a name I cannot ever hope to pronounce, featured the preserve in a PBS documentary. Big Cypress borders the wet freshwater marl prairies of Everglades National Park to the south, the other state and federally protected Cypress County in the west, with water from the Big Cypress flowing south and west into the coastal 10,000 Islands region of Everglades National Park. Period.
Nice. Absolutely excellent. Where's my
And I've still got the spam thing to read out. I know people have been waiting around for an hour and 10 minutes waiting for the spam thing. I don't want to disappoint
yeah,
them.
we're going to do the spam thing. We're going to do that as a readout. That'll be great.
I like it.
Readout in a minute. That'll be awesome. Yeah.
Or mass migrant detention. the Training and Transition Airport run by Miami-Dade County, though surrounded by environmentally sensitive land, open and operational for decades.
This thing's been used a bunch of times over many, many years, and so the impact will be zero.
The biggest opposition, aside from the politics of detaining migrants at all, is about the environment.
What a slap in the face this indigenous tribes.
Especially from the
Everglades, no prison.
Because you can't build any goddamn thing any goddamn where without some Indian tribe saying it's sacred ancestral land. There's a fucking training airport, been sitting on it for 60 years. It didn't bother you that whole time. It only starts bothering you now. I do not believe you, sir.
Orange man bad, not red man.
Orange man bad.
Keep the land sacred. It's all the usual suspects.
here.
If we wanted to be economically, sustainable and conscious, we would be talking about annexing this land into the
well
national
played,
preserve.
sir.
If we really want to do that, we would force the migrants into forced labor, and we would make them do make T-shirts and basketball shoes. That's the real galaxy brain mindset that we need to have.
And I thought I was being harsh by just having them build ICE detention centers. Seriously. More efficient work people. And this guy's like, nah, just put them in sweatshops.
Well, he wants to give them citizenship for escaping the Everglades, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, I'm serious.
Dude, I'm sorry. I'm pretty sure I wouldn't enjoy that trip, but it ain't going to kill you. As long as you can keep your shit together and not die of a fungal infection, you should be fine as long as you don't, go poking around in any holes or nothing. Don't be
it just depends on how much of a clue you have about living outdoors. If you don't have much of a clue, it's possible you might die. If you have half a clue, you probably really shouldn't.
Well, if your experience is desert related, it could be a problem. Or
yes,
mountain
very much so.
Be a problem. But
none of that knowledge is going to come in handy here.
Florida you're not going to freeze to death as long as you're always near water, so you're not going to overheat. You might not be able to drink the water, but if you get a little savvy about that shit, you can deal with it. There's springs everywhere, bro. I mean,
there is a reason why they used to use that area, the Everglades, for the Vietnam jungle survival training.
Yeah, you're not wrong there, bro.
If it was up to me, that's why I'd immediately make them do that. Yeah, if we could make money off of it, I'd do it for sure. Slavery? Well, it's optional. It's opt-in slavery, right? I mean, they're like, it's just. What do you mean, make them? Yeah, of course.
It's voluntary slavery.
Yeah, absolutely. Not supposed to be here. They know they're not supposed to be here.
This is why I wanted to go over
wow.
this.
How could this happen to me? You did it. That's how it happened to you. They opted in.
To the already developed portions of the property, temporary air-conditioned structures, detailed hurricane evacuation plans. We get our first look at the
I don't want to give them air conditioning.
Holding away waste, recycling program for trash, and stocking potable water.
All right, so I hear you, right? Like, I understand where you're coming from, but listen. I'm in Georgia. That might be cruel and unusual punishment. You get a little bit further south from here, and shit gets absolutely untenable.
Oh, yeah, it gets real in a hurry. And where you are, it's miserable as it is.
It is miserable here, and I'm 300 feet above sea level, so
yeah,
yeah,
the Everglades are a whole other deal altogether.
What are we going to do when they have a malaria outbreak?
Haven't we pretty well eradicated malaria?
You'd think so if they'd stop introducing it back into South Florida, and it only takes one individual from another country with it for it to suddenly pop back up.
Well, and also there is another, good unintended byproduct of building the Panama Canal. Was one of the problems we had to solve in order to be able to build the thing was the problem of figuring out a way for everybody not to die of fucking malaria, and they figured it out.
Tonic water.
Yep. Draining standing bodies of water helps a lot too.
Right. Yeah, that is true. That is true. But if you don't know a lot about quinine, it has a very similar effects to like ivermectin. It's a very mild poison that most microbes just can't tolerate. You know, you do fine. It doesn't hurt you hardly at all, but nothing else can survive it. And so quinine was used the same way, but the only way it works is if you can maintain a level of it constantly, because you have to not get malaria in the first place, right? Yeah. That's the truth. And so
when the French made the earlier attempt, the failed attempt at digging the Panama Canal, it wasn't necessarily just because they didn't try hard enough or because Frenchmen are pussies, though I'm sure that was part of it. But the bigger part of it was that so many other people died of malaria that the personnel turnover was so bad that you couldn't even make a dent in the job because you had to replace personnel. So when Theodore Roosevelt decided that we were going to go back down there and try and do the thing again, that was the first problem that was on his mind, because that was the thing that made the last project fail. It wasn't a lack of engineering knowledge or manpower. It was just freaking mosquitoes and malaria.
Right. Yellow fever. And pretty much removing standing bodies of water pretty much clears all of that shit up like a magic bullet.
Between that and quinine, it's a hell of a lot easier to dig a canal through a continent.
It's also that same process had to do with like sanitation and managing all of that type of stuff, because that's another thing that maybe the French didn't quite take enough consideration of. Because I get looking at the project plans from the French, it looks like they were planning on like winging in there on a Tuesday, setting up the basic parameters of how it was going to be built, and then phone the rest of that shit in while it happened. And that did not happen at all. It pretty much went tits up immediately.
And it was the same kind of problem that you had in warfare for all of those centuries and millennia, where you would lose far more men to illness and disease and infection than you would ever lose on the battlefield. I mean, even as recently as our Civil War.
Yes,
you've got three or four times as many dying from illness and disease and infection than you do from wounds on the battlefield. Even as many of those as there were. I mean, that was the most horrific battlefield war in history up until that time, and those casualties, they were still dwarfed by the casualties that happened inside the hospital tent.
Yeah, the 300,000 soldiers died down here, and about 75,000 of them were from battlefield injuries. Every other one was either yellow fever, dysentery, Montezuma's revenge, you fucking name it, dude.
Oh yeah, it completely dwarfed the combat number, and that was that was the same case in pretty much every war throughout history up until we discovered penicillin at the start of the early part of the 20th century.
About how long you got on that spam read?
Probably not very long. It's just a little Google AI robot blurb.
So
probably a minute and a half.
Yes. Okay. Well,
Spam is considered a delicacy or a popular ingredient in several countries, including in parts of Asia and the Pacific Islands. Key regions where Spam is embraced include Hawaii, South Korea, the Philippines, Hong Kong, and Japan. Here is a more detailed look. Hawaii. Spam is a staple food in Hawaii with high per capita consumption and popular dishes like Spam musubi, which is Spam on rice wrapped in seaweed. South Korea. Spam is a popular ingredient in dishes like budae jjigae and is even gifted during holidays like the Lunar New Year. The Philippines. Spam is a common breakfast item in the Philippines, often served with fried rice and eggs. Hong Kong. Spam is found in various dishes, including ramen and other local cuisine. Japan. Spam is a readily available source of protein and fat, often used in sushi and other dishes. Guam. Spam is very popular with high consumption rates and even Spam-themed celebrations, if you can believe it. The United Kingdom. Spam fritters, which is Spam dipped in batter and deep fried, are a traditional dish, especially in some coastal areas. China. Spam is considered a gourmet treat and is even gifted during Chinese New Year, often appearing in gift boxes. Holy freaking shit. Other notable mentions. Spam is also used in some dishes in the Middle East and parts of Europe. And that is all the AI robot told me.
That's the coolest shit I've ever heard, dude. Spam. It's what's for
Spam.
dinner.
Of all things. Spam.
Of all
Freaking
things,
spam.
bro. Oh wow!
I don't know that I have ever eaten spam consciously. Have you?
I have. Yes. I did a lot of camping back in the day, and spam's one of those staple meat products that doesn't go bad at room temperature. So you can throw a couple.
It seems like with all the camping I did when I was a kid back in the 80s, it seems like I should have eaten spam at some point, but I have no recollection of doing so. I feel like I need to pop down to the grocery store and buy a can right now.
Spam, Vienna sausages, freaking sardines.
Eat it with a fork right out of the can.
Bro, I mean, I'm a simple feller. I use a cheese slicer to slice my spam.
I'm curious about these spam fritters they have in the UK because
I was just thinking of that. They've got to be thin sliced, man.
But it definitely sounds like the English would do. Just take some random thing and batter it up and drop it in the deep fryer. That's how they discovered fish and chips, I think, right? Isn't it?
I'm astounded about an empire who took over the world for all the tea in China and all the spices in India and boils everything they eat. I'm fucking amazed, man. All right, it's that time, dude. You got to do the thing, but I want to do something before we do it.
Go.
Give me the money. Give me the money, okay?
Thank you ever so much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us here on the Blast Radius. The best 90 minutes of our week is the 90 minutes that we spend with you. We always find it very satisfying, very, very edifying, and very, very something else-ifying that I can't think of at the moment. We're going to see you back here next Sunday, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific, same time, same 2 channels. He's going to do some stuff between now and then, which you should watch. It's going to be great. I'm going to do some stuff between now and then. You should watch that also. It's going to be slightly better than his, but his is still going to be good because we like our friend Caucasian Sasquatch. See you next time. Do not comply. Get off my lawn.